Hello everyone. We're delighted to have you back on our channel. Today's topic is how narcissists convince others of their superior intelligence. Narcissists often present themselves as superior and better than others. They rarely let go of this inflated self-view, particularly regarding intelligence and physical attractiveness. They are the least likely to admit that others could surpass them in these areas. We'll focus on intelligence in this discussion. I'll highlight 10 strategies narcissists use to persuade people of their intellect. Interestingly, many of these tactics can make narcissists appear less intelligent. So, while narcissists believe these actions boost their intellectual image, they don't necessarily make them seem smarter. Firstly, I'm touching on how narcissists correct other people's grammar. Context is crucial here. Sometimes, correcting someone's grammar is indeed beneficial or required as part of one's job. What I'm referring to is correcting someone's grammar when it's unnecessary or impolite to do so. The intriguing aspect of this strategy from the narcissist's side is the dilemma that sometimes arises when a narcissist knows someone who persistently uses a word incorrectly. The narcissist then has to decide between making themselves look good by correcting the person's grammar, gaining narcissistic gratification, or allowing the other person to continue looking bad, which could also benefit the narcissist. For example, consider a situation where a person refers to an academic article titled A Review of Major Depressive Disorder. The correct way to mention this would be, this person wrote an article titled A Review of Major Depressive Disorder. However, a narcissist might hear someone say, this person wrote an article entitled A Review of Major Depressive Disorder. Despite entitled being commonly used, it's technically incorrect. The correct term is titled, not entitled. The article doesn't have entitlements, it has a title. Faced with this, a narcissist has to choose between correcting the person, boosting their own narcissism, or leaving the error uncorrected, thinking the other person looks foolish for the minor mistake. To a narcissist, every error, however small, is significant. Another reason a narcissist might not correct the error immediately is to use it as ammunition later. From a narcissist's perspective, one mistake equals multiple ones when criticizing or judging a person. They want something to hold against the other person. Instead of pointing out a single misuse of a word, they can accuse the person of habitually using it incorrectly, essentially stockpiling errors to increase the potential embarrassment. This predicament forces the narcissist to decide what sort of satisfaction they derive from correcting others' grammar. Transitioning to the second point, the discussion revolves around the misuse of words. An interesting yet ironic facet is that a narcissist who often corrects the grammar of others is prone to making incorrect usage of words themselves. This is particularly prevalent when it comes to technical terms outside their field of expertise. Narcissists have a tendency to incorporate words from other domains, words not commonly recognized by most people, to appear more intelligent. They are aware that only a small number of people would notice this, giving them a sense of uniqueness and distinction. Often, a narcissist may misuse a term they heard from someone they admire, guessing its meaning based on context or similarity to known words. They incorporate it into their vocabulary without checking its actual definition. This reflects their impulsivity and high self-confidence. Their sense of self-importance makes them believe they can't err, leading them to assume their word usage is correct. This behavior is notably seen in the mental health field, where jargon isn't everyday language. It's remarkable when a narcissist uses a word entirely incorrectly, not just making a usual or reasonable error. For example, the term phenomenological was once used by a narcissist as a sophisticated version of phenomenal. But phenomenological refers to the study of consciousness structures from a first-person perspective, typically in qualitative research. Another term narcissists often misuse is ideological. I once saw it wrongly associated with eating, probably due to the word's initial part. However, ideological truly indicates something leading to a disorder's development. Again, the narcissist hears the term, assumes its meaning, and starts using it without any research. The third characteristic of a narcissist is their tendency to steer conversations toward topics they believe others are unfamiliar with. This is a common strategy implemented by narcissists. They gain a basic understanding of a specific subject they assume others know little about and consistently veer the discussion back to this chosen topic. For example, consider a person who doesn't know much about cooking. As a non-cook myself, I can relate. Given my lack of expertise, I wouldn't offer any captivating insights on this topic. Hence, even minor cooking knowledge would seem impressive to me. In such situations, once a narcissist spots this knowledge gap, they continuously discuss cooking. They know they can make mistakes without being caught. This lets the narcissist appear smart even without in-depth knowledge. They might learn some technical terms and a few facts, projecting an expert's image. The interesting part is when a knowledgeable third party interrupts the conversation. Suddenly, the narcissist loses interest in the topic. They can't keep up their intelligence act, and their limited understanding might be exposed. As a result, they either switch the topic or exit the conversation. The fourth characteristic of a narcissist is their tendency to uphold a belief even when evidence contradicts it. This behavior is not uncommon. Narcissists often excessively adhere to notions that safeguard their self-esteem. Hence, narcissism doesn't necessarily correlate with a willingness to embrace new experiences. While a narcissist might have a strong appreciation for the arts, possess intellectual curiosity, and engage in fantasies, they often have a blind spot regarding their own worth and significance. A narcissist with a grandiose nature is often inflexible in their thinking. On the other hand, a vulnerable narcissist may process criticisms and experience feelings of shame and resentment, but they frequently defend unsound positions regardless. For example, a narcissist might find data, say, from a scholarly paper, that backs their opinion. They may prefer a certain idea they've supported for a long time. Imagine a theoretical treatment called XYZ therapy, claimed to help people lessen sadness. The narcissist strongly trusts XYZ therapy's effectiveness. They eagerly search for and collect data affirming this belief, a tendency known as confirmation bias. While anyone can show this behavior, narcissists go further. When they meet irrefutable proof contradicting their theory, proving their idea unsupported, they still deny being wrong. Narcissists view a change in opinion as a sign of weakness. They dread looking less smart for supporting a later disproven idea, even though changing one's mind based on new evidence shows intelligence and adaptable thinking. When a narcissist can't triumph through evidence, they resort to alternative strategies. This leads us to the fifth point. Narcissists tend to attack individuals who hold differing opinions instead of debating based on factual evidence. Suppose a narcissist realizes they cannot win a specific argument. They will then target those who advocate the contrary viewpoint. Often, they search for a single mistake made by the opposition and broadly apply it to all scenarios. For instance, they might point out someone who once misspelled a word and argue, if that person can't even spell correctly, I wouldn't trust them with anything. This is a common sentiment expressed by narcissists. While it's possible for someone to lose all credibility, it's not a typical occurrence. However, when interacting with a narcissist, one might easily get the impression that people frequently lose their credibility, perhaps even multiple times per day. Essentially, a narcissist latches onto minor mistakes to systematically undermine someone's credibility. This behavior serves solely to allow the narcissist to avoid admitting that their stance lacks substantiation. Now, let's progress to the sixth point. This involves the narcissist blaming others for their misguided beliefs. At times, even narcissists can't deny that they've supported a flawed stance or made an error. However, instead of acknowledging and learning from it, they shift the blame onto someone else. They believe this tactic makes them appear smarter, even though it clearly does not. They might make statements such as, "I was misled," or, "The person who provided me with this information was trying to sabotage me," or even, "There was a plot to make me look stupid." They'd rather spin such stories than simply admit their mistake, which would be much simpler and would likely enhance their image. Moving on to the seventh point, it's relatively straightforward. This involves the narcissist frequently using words like logic and reason, as if merely uttering these terms strengthens their argument. It may sound impressive, but it doesn't truly enhance someone's argument. If a narcissist is in a debate, they might state, "Look, I'm just trying to be logical," let's be reasonable, I'm the voice of reason, or, I only make logical choices. They're merely uttering these phrases, essentially asserting, I'm correct. They don't support this with any evidence, but by incorporating words like logic and reason, they're attempting to gain an advantage in the argument. Of course, merely saying these words isn't enough to construct a solid argument. To truly apply logic and reason, more is needed than simply stating, hey, I'm using logic and reason. However, this is typical behavior for a narcissist. The eighth point involves how narcissists often dismiss or discount aspects linked to intelligence that they themselves do not possess. This behavior reflects their inability to esteem others higher than themselves. For example, when faced with a person who has achieved success, a trait often associated with intelligence, the narcissist might downplay the accomplishment by attributing it to mere luck. This is their way of discounting the other person's achievement, thus undermining their intelligence. Similarly, when encountering individuals with higher education levels, they might dismissively say, well, anyone can get a piece of paper. Here, they are belittling the effort and intelligence it takes to obtain advanced education, just to preserve their sense of superiority. Narcissists often have a distorted view of intelligence, valuing only the types they believe they possess. This is apparent when they prefer one type of intelligence over others. For instance, a narcissist with high verbal intelligence might dismiss other types, insisting that only verbal intelligence counts. If they have strong cognitive reasoning, they may reject all other types, stating that only performance matters. This selective valuation is also seen when they meet extraordinarily intelligent people. If a person has a very high IQ, they might concentrate on the social shortcomings that can accompany such high intelligence. They would highlight these shortcomings, arguing that intelligence without social skills is useless. This behavior further shows their tendency to downplay actual intelligence and find faults to maintain their perceived superiority. In summary, narcissists are often reluctant to accept that people can be highly intelligent, and even more, they struggle with the idea that some might be smarter than them. This attitude reflects their need to feel superior and their failure to recognize the diverse forms of intelligence they may not possess. Narcissists often fabricate their scores on intelligence tests, which brings us to our ninth point. People seldom question someone's declared IQ, but when they do, peculiarities about the narcissist's claims arise. Often, narcissists cannot recall which intelligence test they took to get their claimed IQ. They may say it was too long ago to remember, or that they don't know why they were given an IQ test. However, most people can remember why and in what context they received an IQ test, such as in a school setting. Furthermore, narcissists tend to lack an understanding of the typical ranges or limits of intelligence tests. For example, an individual with an IQ of 120 or 130 functions similarly, regardless of how much higher the score is. Narcissists don't appreciate this distinction. The maximum score for most IQ tests is around 160 to 170, but some narcissists will claim to have an IQ of 200, or even 15,000, which is, of course, impossible. Lastly, narcissists often can't remember who administered the test. They might vaguely refer to some person, which seems odd given their otherwise sharp memory. All these points suggest that narcissists often lie about their intelligence and performance on IQ tests. Narcissists often claim impossibly high IQs, sometimes even suggesting alien intervention. This leads us to our final point. Narcissists feign understanding of complex topics they clearly don't grasp. They act as if they're well-versed in every subject, never admitting ignorance. Instead of saying, I don't know, let me look into it, they offer incorrect answers swiftly. It's as though they prefer to provide wrong answers quickly rather than admit they don't know everything. Surprisingly, this strategy can work temporarily. If queried briefly, some people might believe the narcissist's expansive knowledge claims. Yet, the lack of depth becomes apparent when the conversation lasts longer. After a few minutes, it becomes clear that the narcissist doesn't truly understand everything they profess to know. Here, we've explored 10 tactics that narcissists often employ in their attempts to project themselves as highly intelligent. However, it's important to understand that these strategies, while firmly believed and adhered to by the narcissist, may not always yield the desired results. In fact, they may not serve to enhance the perceived intelligence of the narcissist in the eyes of others. Despite their occasional ineffectiveness, these tactics are frequently observed when interacting with a narcissist. This is particularly true in situations where a narcissist feels the need to assert their intellectual dominance. It's often advisable to disengage in such scenarios to avoid getting drawn into futile debates or discussions about their exaggerated IQ levels. Narcissists are known for going to great lengths to safeguard their ego. This protective instinct can create a challenging, and at times harmful, environment for those in their vicinity. It's crucial to bear this in mind when dealing with individuals exhibiting narcissistic tendencies. Given the complex and multifaceted nature of narcissism, opinions on this subject can greatly vary. I'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives on this topic. Please feel free to share your views in the comment section. They often contribute to fascinating and insightful dialogues. I hope you found this comprehensive analysis engaging and enlightening. Thank you for taking the time to watch and engage with this content.